if you're going to meet with someone, actually do a bit of research before you meet with that person. I think that's got a lot easier because of ChatGPT is a great tool for researching. So let's say you're meeting with, I don't know, someone in a C-suite role. You can just Google, what does this person care about? Not Google, rather ChatGPT. You could check, what kind of things does these people generally care about, and you can even find out a bit about the company, right? What is happening in the company? What are some initiatives they're taking? Are they opening new offices in another country? That kind of information there is great for small talk, because you've got to make a bit of small talk at the beginning, not too much, not too little, get that right amount. But if you show you've done your research, you're instantly building rapport and a bit of credibility as well at the same time. The more you know, as they say, that knowledge is power, the better you are going into these kind of situations.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Caffarey. Now, Dan trains people to speak English, or trains salespeople to speak English. I should be more accurate with that. He'll pick me up on that in a second, I think. So Dan, welcome.
Hello there, Fred. Thank you very much for having me on today.
So training salespeople to speak English. Let's just be clear on this. So particularly, which salespeople are you training?
So people working in pre-sales. So there's many different job titles for these certain people: sales engineers, solutions consultants, solution architects. They've got all these different titles, but they are salespeople and they work in conjunction with the sales team. So, part of that role is you need to be able to understand how to sell. And I think for a lot of people that I speak to, when they come to me, they say, English is this barrier in my career, but they know the technical language, of course, because it's all in English, the software details, the training is in English. But when it comes to speaking, to prospects or even internally as well with the other moving parts of the sales process, it's that kind of language that is the challenge. There's a difference between technical language and the language of what we call business, so business English.
Right. And so these are non-native speakers.
Non-native speakers, right? Yeah.
See, because I reckon there's the same issue with native English speakers.
Right.
I really do. And then this is what I wanted to do on this podcast is to kind of test that, probe it. Yeah. And the way to do that, the way I thought would be a bit fun, was if you sort of tell us, well, kind of what are some of the main areas, the main tips, things that you tell people, and let's just compare whether that will be something similar to what I'd be saying to people.
Right. Okay. This is going to be fun.
Who are native speakers. We'll see. We'll see whether my suspicions are proved correct.
Right. Okay.
But I am pretty sure that they will, and that any salesperson listening to this is going to benefit from the advice.
Sure. I think one of the things I say to people is, people, they often speak to me and they say, I need English. I need to practice my English, right? And I say, look, that's true. Of course, you need to practice your English, but you also need skills, right? You need to use English in a skilled way. And this is where I think the crossover could be, because there are many native speakers of English. They have fluent English, but they're not skilled communicators, especially when it comes to talking to clients and selling, essentially. So it's more than just language. It's knowing how to use your language properly. And yeah, I think that's where the crossover comes, but we will see from your questioning.
well, particularly those quite technical people. I work with a lot of engineers, a lot of people in manufacturing,
right.
people who are very, very expert in the job they do. They can do a brilliant technical job, and maybe sometimes get down in the weeds a little bit with that, or don't communicate it quite effectively to people who don't get some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what then. Can you give us sort of, I don't know, 5 tips? Action points. People love tips. Let's go on tips. I hate the word tips, but anyway, 5 tips, 5 things that people could do to get better at their communication in English.
Okay.
Communication in English.
So I think the first one maybe I'd start with here is to try and speak their language. Now, I'm not talking about English here, but I'm talking about the language of the people you're speaking to. So what like just kind of what you said there about not getting stuck in the weeds with technical language and features and jargon, try and not go too heavy on that side and think about your audience. I mean, that's kind of 101 of communication. It's, keep your audience in mind, who it is you're speaking to. Is what you're saying going to resonate with them? So for example, if you're working in sales and you're speaking to, C-suite, don't go too heavy on the the tech jargon, right? Talk more about business outcomes. Try and speak their language. And I think for salespeople that can be really difficult, because if you're working in if you have like a broad portfolio of products and services you're selling, then you've got people in all these different markets, and not only do you have to, or if you're talking a non-native speaker, not only do you have to learn English, but you have to learn the sort of specific phrases and ways of saying things that happen in their market. And when you speak in their language, that's when it resonates. And that's when they think, hey, this person, they've done their research, they're actually talking my language and they understand me. So I think that would be my tip number one. Try
Oh,
and speak their language.
that's an awesome one, and the example you've given is a classic.
Right.
I'm actually working on a project at the moment, with some tech people, some very very techy expert
Mm,
engineers, like I said, working at operational level normally, and
mm,
they're brilliant at it. And I think the challenge then is that they're out their comfort zone for two reasons.
mm.
Yeah, because they're not speaking about this to the people that they know and they recognize and are essentially them, so they know how to
Right.
talk about them. And they're not speaking about the stuff that they're that comfortable with either. Because
Mm,
when they're speaking the functionality,
right.
yeah, easy peasy, it's what they do, and that's what the other
Yeah.
person wants to
Yeah.
hear. So the C-suite want to know something completely different, don't they? It's the business
Right. Yeah.
impact. So they've now
Yeah.
got to learn a whole different sale almost.
Mm,
So someone who might be a bit overwhelming for them anyway,
yeah.
talking about something they're not really used to, and then trying to get it right in the way they deliver. It's kind of
Right.
it's a toughie. Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
just knowing they want something different is the main thing, isn't it?
yeah, that really speaks to what people say to me, because I'm not a tech guy, right? So if you work with me on my course, you've really got to break it down to me, right? Which is great for these people who are so used to just talking about the tech, that you can really practice in kind of the lessons that I do of like breaking it down, simplifying complex ideas, and actually linking it to the value. And yeah, speaking their language is the best way to say that, I think.
Yeah, I say that getting that they want the business impact rather than the operational is often the
Mm,
real big. Well, that's a podcast on its own. That's a course on its own, actually.
nice. We're done
It's
then.
good. Yeah. Well, I've written a course on it. I'm going to put a link at the end of the podcast to this as
Nice.
well. So we're selling to C-suite. No, it is just selling at C-level, different thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay, so speak their language, right? Let's
Yeah.
stay. That's number one. Number two. What do
Okay.
we need?
I've actually changed my order. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go in with the next one is actually listen rather than just hear. So a bit of my background, actually, before I got into teaching, I've been, doing teaching, business English, business communication for 10 years. Before I did that, I worked in sales for 10 years. I did everything from selling double glazing when I first left school to selling big advertising deals and B2B, like account management stuff. But at the beginning of my career, when I worked in B2B sales, I didn't do any listening. I went straight in with just my mouth. Essentially, I thought I can just talk my way into any sale by using sort of fancy language and appearing to be super professional. And I think a lot of people may feel like that, or that might be their perception of a salesperson, but actually a really good salesperson just needs to be able to actually listen and hear the cues and things that they need to pick up on. And that's difficult for a number of reasons. So it might be difficult because English is not your first language, so you're finding it hard to actually tune in. But it may be for other reasons, right? So it may be just that you're nervous, or that you're so keen to get that sale right because you have your targets looming over your head. So I think a tip here would be to just learn to slow the process down a bit and try and, I guess, adopt a mindset of being curious and just generally being really interested, rather than thinking about what the next steps are. How am I going to get this to the next stage in the sales process? I think if you can do that, It's hard. It comes with experience, right? It comes with doing this for a while. But if you can get to that stage, then yeah, you're on your way.
Yeah. What's the famous kind of phrase? Is it say, "Are you listening or just waiting to talk?"
Right, that's it.
It's
Right.
like the thing.
I
But
find myself doing it too. So.
well, it takes practice. It is a
Mm,
skill, and as
yeah.
you said, I mean, my opinions on why people perhaps don't do this so well.
Mm.
It is often because people are passionate about what they're talking about,
Right. Yes.
and then they want to
Yeah.
get that message across, and they feel that that's the best way to do it
Mm,
because they've not been trained in sales, which
mm,
can be a bit counterintuitive at times,
mm,
which is to
mm.
not tell people about stuff straight away.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys, I bet you're training, have kind of taken that route where they've been excellent technical people who
Yes.
have been brilliant in front of customers because
Mm.
they've been speaking about the stuff the customer needs.
Right.
Oh, you need to go into sales, mate.
Right.
Yeah. And then experience bad sales. So it's
Yeah.
then they go off, oh, salespeople, I'm a salesperson. I need to talk more then. Off we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Or no one gives them any sort of training on that. I think not to speak bad about all these companies, but I'm not sure how much sales training people get, or they just go in with what they think a sale is, and like you said, just kind of talk about it in a way that people might think, oh, I buy that, but that's not what it's all about. Like you said, counterintuitive and kind of listening more than you're speaking.
well, if you don't want to speak bad about them, I will then.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
honestly, I think no, I do think, and not all companies, obviously,
Mm,
but some companies they cause their own problems by overdoing product training.
mm,
They're so self-centered, so fascinated about their own stuff. They get a new product out, they get everybody in, they'll talk about the
mm,
product, yeah, all these wonderful new things the product does.
mm.
Now, what does somebody who's not been trained on sales think they're going to have to talk about?
Mm.
That stuff. They make a
Right.
rod for their own bats. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm happy to call that one out.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
worry
I'll
about
let you do that. Yeah.
it. Oh, if only there was a way to train people in sales better. Oh, I've written that course too.
Yeah.
Oh, this is excellent. Thank you for teeing me up on selling all my stuff.
Yeah, all right.
I'm supposed to be doing this the other way, Dan. Oh, you can come
Yeah.
back every week.
Yeah.
What's what's the third thing you were thinking, Dad? You got a
Okay,
list in front.
so yeah, right. My next one would be concise. Okay, so this means not waffling, which is a good British English term, right? That we're not just talking too much and not going on and on and on and on. So I think that can be hard if you're a non-native speaker, particularly because you don't know the right words and expressions to use. Now, this is where I'm going to come in here, Fred, with my expertise about business English. So if we think about people who've never studied business English, they say, what is business English, right? And business English is a register. So it's a certain type of language that is used in connected to a certain scenario in business, right? So if you think outside of business for a minute, you think about like academic English. When you learn to write in an academic way, you learn
Mm.
it through two ways, right? You learn it through instruction, through your lecturer or whatnot explains to you how to do it, but you also learn it by reading tons of academic papers. And to be really boring, to be really linguistic and technical, you do something called lexical priming, which is where your brain starts to notice these kind of chunks of language, right? These certain expressions that you use when you write academically. It's the same for business. There's this language that people use, and I'm going to put a caveat in here because you have to use it skillfully. So you have to not use all of that jargon that we all hear in business or the sort of buzzwords, but you have to be aware of that language because you will hear it as well. But the being concise part is understanding phrases that can be used to communicate complex ideas simply, right? So, for example, I've got a couple of examples. If you're talking about operational efficiency, right, that is a phrase. If you're talking about improving operational efficiency or helping with operational efficiency, that's a phrase that you might use if you know it. But if you don't know it, you would explain that in a very roundabout way, right? If you're not fluent in the language. Like another what example could be strategic alignment, right? These kind of phrases are business phrases that carry a lot of information. So when you sort of know this language, that allows you to communicate in a more concise way, because in the West particularly, like in America and the UK, what we value in business communication, and you think about the C-suite people, it's all about kind of being straight to the point, getting to the point, and not kind of going off track and beating around the bush. These kind of things are really helpful. So I think that will be my next point, being concise.
Yeah. I will make a point, but just a quick
Mm,
question to you.
mm, mm,
Who actually said, because I think I've attributed this to so many people,
mm,
who actually said in response to the, why did you write me such a long letter?
mm.
I didn't have time to write you a short one. Who
Right.
was
Okay.
that? I mean,
I've
I
got
said it to
no
two
idea.
people. Mark Twain. I don't know, but I mean, it does make sense, doesn't it? To be
Mm,
concise actually takes
mm.
a bit of time to work out what to say.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can write sort of a long sentence and then you can review that,
Yeah.
shorten it, and by using a lot of these phrases that carry a lot of meaning, you can do that, and it comes naturally to you if you're well versed in that language. But let's say you're selling to a new market, like e-commerce or something like that, for example. You've got to start learning a lot of these new phrases. Okay, so
Yeah.
again, it's another register, it's another part of business English that you're learning, and this is true for native speakers as well as non-native.
It is, and I think this is something of a minefield actually, because
Mm,
I mean, looking at LinkedIn, I
mm,
mean, whenever you're looking at LinkedIn, pinch of salt, I would say.
mm.
There seems to be a lot of advice, people saying, oh, don't use these corporate expressions, don't use these
Yes.
kind of sounds, don't use these things, speak in like human terms,
Yeah. Yeah.
which to agree is correct. But it's
Yes.
also, I think, wrong, because in some cases, that's exactly what you should do, because that is the language the audience speaks. They get it.
I'm so pleased you
If
said
you
this,
sort of
Fred.
say operational efficiency to a CEO, they get it. When you
Yeah,
start waffling around it, trying to use mate down the pub language,
yeah,
they're going to think, why are you talking so long about this? You're trying to say operational efficiency, aren't you?
yeah. It's a
But
balance, right?
it's
You
an
got to get the
absolute
balance
balance.
right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but to say, oh, we need to cut this business jargon out, and I agree. Speak in simple terms. That's true. But part of that is these phrases that carry a lot of meaning, like that one you just said. I'm really pleased to hear you say that. I'll just make another quick point here. Idioms that you hear in business, so kind of business idioms. I actually made a kind of post on LinkedIn about this, like business idioms, and someone said to me, "I normally love your post, Dan, but I disagree with this because we need to cut this language from business." I say that's good, but you need to know this language because particularly if you're a non-native speaker, you're going to hear it all the time, people using these idioms and phrases. So you need to understand them. And then it's your choice whether you use them or whether you find a simpler way to communicate. But this is part of the language.
it, again, it's pinched up with all the advice. If
Mm,
you're
mm,
listening to somebody who is speaking like that, you would
mm.
be crazy not to mirror it and use them back.
Right.
That's how
Yeah.
they like speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, they might not know what they mean either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we're in a right mess. I mean, that's a different, a
Yeah.
different. I say this why because it sounds cool, but you sound like an
Yeah. Yeah.
episode of Succession.
Yeah. You got to not use too many buzzwords in a sentence, right?
But there is a time and a place because they've been designed to be concise because people get them. And if
Right.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, we needed to
I
bust
mean,
that
if
myth,
we
I
if we
think.
totally simplified the whole of business English, I feel it would sound very strange and basic, and
Yeah,
people, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I love the whole "tell me like I'm a 5-year-old" stuff. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
makes a load of sense. But I'm a
yeah,
5-year-old that has learned some actual expressions, which are deliberately used to condense stuff down.
yeah,
That's,
yeah. Great. I'm really pleased you said that, Fred, because it's kind of something that's been like a bee in my bonnet, right? I've been like, no, this is because I see it a lot on LinkedIn. It's very easy to tell people you need to simplify your language. Like, how, in what way should I do it? How can I make this simple? Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's a whole
But
episode.
yeah, it's clear and concise. That's what I
Clear,
say. I think
clear and
that's the best
concise
thing.
and appropriate. I think that'd
Yeah,
probably be the
yes.
thing there.
That's another to get all linguistic. That's another field of linguistics. Language appropriacy really applies to business. So that, like we said, talking their language, using the phrases that are appropriate. Like, are you being too formal?
Yeah,
Are you being too informal? Right, you've got to get that balance right. And this is a huge thing for people who are fluent in the language. And then if you're learning the language, it's a big thing you need to learn as well.
yeah. Oh, I mean, so far, my little premise, my hypothesis is being proved right here.
We're good.
Well, no, this stuff. Anybody listening to this, I
Mm,
hope is sitting up and going, okay, yeah, I'm an English speaker, have been all my life, but
yeah.
you guys are saying stuff that I don't know if I always consider as well as I probably should.
Mm.
So I hope anyway.
Yeah.
It's making me think.
Yeah.
um, Brilliant. Right, what else do I need to think about? Number 4, I think we're on, are we? Are we on number 4?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at what I wrote down. So I'd say ask good questions as well. So yeah, like it kind of goes back to the other point. It's not all about speaking. It's not all about pitching the product. It's about just asking the good questions that get people thinking and get people talking. Right? If
Yeah.
you ask a question that you already know the answer to, that's not a good question, because it can be very obvious that you're just trying to ask questions to move the conversation along. You want to really try and ask insightful questions, or questions that get them thinking. Yeah.
I am so pleased you said that in the order that you did, and I'm going to
Right.
underline it, and we'll probably use this as the clip
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
promote the episode. You said first, ask questions to get people thinking.
Mm,
That's why we ask questions.
mm,
I think in sales, gone are the days where you're asking questions to fulfill your own selfish checklist. Yeah,
right.
bant
Yes.
or something
Your
like that. Is
script,
it is
or
it worth me going forward? Budget. Have you got any money? Yeah. Are you the
yeah.
decision maker? Yeah. How big is this need? When are you looking
Yeah.
to put this in place? Or who's that about? It's about you. Asking
Yeah.
questions to help people think.
Yeah.
That's that. When you said good questions, I was ready to go, oh, what's a good question? And you just told me.
Yeah. When I said good questions, I thought that's not a great way of phrasing it, but I'm
Better
thinking.
qualify good.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to when I worked in sales. I feel like I've learned more about it as someone who's coaching it. It's because it's made me more reflective of how I operated back in the day, and I didn't really think about this carefully. And actually, obviously, I have a business now, and I still sell, and I try and adopt this method of just actually listening to people and trying to ask real questions so that I can understand. Like, I really want to know what people's challenges are so that I can help. I think that's the two sales mindsets. So you've got the one where you're just trying to sell,
Yeah.
or there's one where you generally want to be able to solve problems with the thing that you're selling.
And and really that helping people to think,
Mm,
that's where the value's at more often than
mm,
not. Now people rock into sales, go, oh, I can tell you the value because this is what you're going to get from me. It's like, well,
mm,
more often than not, the differentiator, the value, will be part of the process in the way you're helping them to think. So
mm.
I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what language you speak. Even if you're a little faltering, even if your English isn't perfect,
Mm.
but the question has been thought through, designed to stimulate that thought process because you're maybe providing a piece of insight
Mm.
to get it going. That's awesome. I mean, people
Yeah,
forget what
yeah,
where you're from or kind of accents or anything
yeah.
like that. It's like, whoa, because they get into their own mind, trying to work stuff out and trying to make sense of stuff. Our job's to help people make sense of
It's a
what's going on. So
really, really good point there you made about um, you know, absolute perfection in your language. And some of the non-native speakers I speak to, they really worry, understandably, about kind of grammar and being totally accurate, because accurate use of language is important, but not if it's at the detriment of you being able to get your ideas out and ask those questions. So I think, yeah, there's a balance between accuracy and fluency. And fluency, I think, is more important, right? Making sure that you can speak and ask the right questions. It doesn't have to be totally perfect. And if you're a non-native speaker listening, you shouldn't worry about too much about having an accent, because the truth is, if you're an adult, it's very hard to change your accent. But think about being clear in what you say and being concise and asking good questions. I think that's what's really important.
accents are interesting, right?
Yeah,
It's
definitely. Yeah,
it's characters,
yeah.
personality. Oh,
I love it. Yeah.
yeah.
But there are
Um,
some, this is where I'm going to start to complain about my industry. There are some sort of accent reduction coaches. And I think it's not really possible after you've become an adult, because the muscles in your mouth become really fixed.
oh,
And you're always going to sound like Spanish or French, but you can focus on the stressed part of the word, the part where the intonation changes, to make sure you're clear. And yeah, so there are things you can do, but yeah, don't pay for an accent reduction course.
Pay for one of the ones that I'm about to drop in. Pay for Dad's. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Well, no. I mean, I'm joking apart. I'm thinking, would I prefer somebody who has got a perfect accent asking me a bollocks
like,
question,
like the Queen, the
or
Queen's
somebody
English.
who's accented
Yeah,
asking me something that makes me go, oh,
I haven't thought about that.
oh,
Yeah,
I think about that. Well, that's awesome.
yeah,
The
man.
latter every
Yeah,
single time.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Do I mean, again, the other thing I'm just thinking, absolute perfection. Do I think about absolute perfection? But I worry about
Probably not.
absolute. He
No.
said, no, this wasn't even on purpose. I was trying to talk about absolute perfection and doing a bad job of it. So I don't care. It's natural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not fuss
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Got,
I,
got
but
there,
I
got there
also
eventually.
there are people on LinkedIn again who say they say, forget about grammar, it doesn't matter at all. But you can't. Anyone learning a language is focused on grammar and they care about grammar. So that is also like we said about LinkedIn. There's a lot of extremes. Never do this. Stop doing this. It's kind of context is
Yeah.
important, right?
I've never written an extreme post before to grab attention.
Have you not? I probably have.
Of course I have.
Yeah.
Probably this morning, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I
No,
think I read it, so it worked.
that's why we're chatting.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is awesome. This no, and again, it's applying to anybody
Right.
in any sales role. I'd say actually, it's not even just pre-sales.
Yeah. Can
Right?
I
Let's
give
see
you
if
sorry, Fred,
yeah,
can I jump in? My analogy I use, right, is I always say, what kind of sport do you like? Fred, what kind of sport do you like? Are you football?
rugby man.
Rugby? Oh man, I don't
Yeah.
know that much about rugby. So, but let's say you play rugby on a Saturday, with your friends, but then you decide you want to play in Six Nations, right? That's rugby, yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
want
sorry.
you want to play in Six Nations. To get to that level, you can't just practice, right? You need to
Yep,
sort of
yep,
specific training, specific muscle groups, diet
yep,
plan. It's a bit like that with becoming a really good communicator. You've got
yep.
to focus on different skills that you need for different situations. So,
It, yeah, I mean, any sport, there's match fit. You
mm.
can't just play around on the practice pitch all the time. You have to
Right,
go and
okay, I
do
like
it.
that. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's
well,
good.
there's that, and there is then you look at the top performers. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are looking at a whole bunch of things.
yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
looking at as you say, the diet, the physical fitness, the skills fitness.
Mental as well, right? Mental
Mental is a
fitness. Yeah,
huge one.
yeah.
The British cycling team had sleep specialists. They
Really,
used to carry their
yeah,
own
that's
beds, their own
amazing.
pillows around.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they have the technical performance around the sort of kit they're
Yeah,
wearing
yeah,
and all this sort of stuff to
yeah,
get
yeah.
better.
That's
Yeah,
amazing, isn't
it's
it?
and some people do no training whatsoever.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I'm just naturally brilliant. Okay.
yeah.
Um. Oh, cool. Okay, another whole podcast.
Mm.
What's the fifth element then? Let's see if we go 5 out of 5 that all this stuff is relevant to anybody in
Yeah,
any communication in sales.
yeah. So I think, like, kind of do your homework. Like, if you're going to meet with someone, actually do a bit of research before you meet with that person. I think that's got a lot easier because of ChatGPT is a great tool for researching. So let's say you're meeting with, I don't know, someone in a C-suite role. You can just Google, what does this person care about? Not Google, rather
Yeah,
ChatGPT. You could check, what kind of things does these people generally care about, and you can even find out a bit about the company, right? What is
yeah,
happening in the company? What are some initiatives they're taking? Are they opening new offices in another country? That kind of information there is great for small talk, right? Because you've got to make a bit of small talk at the beginning,
yeah,
not too much, not too little. Get that right amount. But if you show you've done your research, you're instantly building rapport and a bit of credibility as well at the same time. The
yeah.
more you know, as they say, that knowledge is power, the better you are going into these kind of situations.
Yeah. Maybe we should have put that one as number one.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
if you do your homework, then you can start to think about what your insightful question is going to be. Then you can
Right.
start to think about how you're going to make sure you're listening. Then you can make
Yeah.
sure that you
And what
concise.
are
So
those sort of phrases? What are the kind of phrases that
yeah,
might really help, that might really connect with the person you're speaking to?
yeah,
So, like I did say, it's all about thinking about your audience, communication 101. Who is it I'm communicating to? How should I communicate in this situation?
yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm playing with ChatGPT and encouraging people to use this.
Mm.
I get them to kind of go through a rapid research model.
All
So this is
right.
about a
Okay. That's
sequence of
interesting.
prompts. Yeah, where
Yeah.
you first prompt ask, say you're going to speak to the CTO. Yeah.
Mm.
What is the role of a CTO in an engineering company? Right, cool.
Mm.
Next one is the A. What are the aims? that a
Right. Okay.
CTO has. Yeah, or yeah, what's their objectives, what their KPIs. I mean, the
Mm,
prompt in some ways doesn't matter. You're asking the question. It's like you're talking to someone.
yeah.
Then you flip it around and you come to P and you go, you are now the CTO of this company. Tell me what pressures you're under.
Mm,
Bang. Okay, now we get inside the
nice.
head. On those pressures, tell me the impacts of them. That's the I. D is what are the desires. So
Wow.
you
Okay. So
can
this is,
go through that in a sequence where the AI is telling you and
yeah,
giving an insight into that person's world.
that is amazing. Yeah, I can see how useful that would be. I wish that was around when I worked in sales.
Oh, hours and hours and hours of research into minutes
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
can then go and then you can apply the human
Yeah.
intelligence into, okay, so how am I going to use that?
Mm,
To be fair, you could carry on the prompting.
yeah.
What questions could I ask around? Like, there's a second set of prompts around, but
Yeah.
use that. And then another piece of AI, I don't know if you've come across this, Humantic AI. Now,
I've not heard this.
ChatGPT is
No.
free. Humantic will tell you the person's personality style,
Wow.
uses disc profiling type
Right.
stuff,
That's
looks
very
at their
clever.
footprint on the
Yeah.
internet, and will say, "All right, yeah, Fred
So,
is a
slightly
D."
terrifying.
Bloody accurate as well.
Yeah,
Fred is
really?
a D. The way to approach Fred is dot dot dot
I
dot
should
dot
I
dot
should
dot.
have done this before meeting you today.
Pretty obvious from looking at my LinkedIn post. It's not hard, really. No, but yeah, absolutely. Look, okay, if you're not going to use those things,
Yeah.
taking time to consider it or being very aware in the early parts of the meeting, which might be a little bit too late. Yeah,
Mm,
because now you're trying to respond and you're trying to do all the other sort of stuff we've been talking
yeah.
about.
And then that stops you actually listening because you're kind of
Yeah,
panicking and yeah.
processing. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I reckon we're 5 out of 5 on that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. I'm
and
pleased.
anyone communicating, native speaker, non-native speaker,
Mm,
being very aware of how you're doing that
yeah.
has got to be a winner.
I think there's a crossover between business English and communication skills. They're basically the same thing. It's just that if you're a non-native speaker, you have to learn that foundation, the
Yeah,
language part, and then you've got to start using it in a skilled way because it's no good
yeah,
having all of these phrases and idioms from the business world, like blue sky thinking, right? Things like that. Does anyone use that anymore? But you have to sort of know how to use them, when to use them, who to use them with, and you've got to really be sort of reflective and think about it essentially. Yeah. I'll just tell you one thing. That's sort of why I started making a course that's very specific because I used to teach all of these business English courses and they were very much they sort of cover the same things like really basic skills for meetings or teleconferencing calls and stuff, or be teaching you all this vocabulary and you might be learning like accountancy vocabulary and retail vocabulary. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's handy to know this, of course, you're trying to become fluent in a language. But if you want to, you know, get really understand the language you need for your role, then you've got to be more specific. So
yeah. Awesome. So specifically, you are for pre-sales
that's right.
professionals, um, non-native English speakers, where you
Right.
can start to
Yeah.
do your magic on
Yeah.
helping with that. Awesome. And so, where can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out?
LinkedIn is the
Yeah,
best way. Or you can find me on my websites. That's learn-london.co.uk.
brilliant. I will pop both of those into the chat. I was giggling, by the way, when you said LinkedIn. I thought, yeah, we've called out LinkedIn a couple of times on this.
Yeah, yeah. I hope I don't get banned.
But if you want to talk to us on it, we're there.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
doing good things on it, promise.
Yeah,
There is a lot of good on LinkedIn. There is just some
definitely.
silly stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming along and
yeah.
sharing those thoughts. Been really useful, been really good fun. And
Been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.